What's up, y'all? This is One Royal Way here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield. Thank you so much for tuning in today, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for tuning in and making this a part of your day. Listening, talking to little Royals. Joining me tonight is someone that does a little bit of everything. Former big leaguer with the Royals, podcast host, motivational speaker, does a lot, just a little bit of everything. Les Norman. Thank you so much for coming on and talking little Royals with me.
You got it, brother, man. It's great to be here. The Royals game is on. I was watching it a little bit, so we're sliding right back over into you, and yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm glad that we have real baseball to talk about. It was kind of cool to talk a little bit of spring training, get our feet wet a little bit, but these games matter, and we got a lot of them to discuss. Before we do that, this show is always brought to you by Kansas City Strength and Conditioning. Let's hear a quick word from them.
From the beginning, we knew right away that we wanted to do strength conditioning and a throwing program for the baseball and softball community. It wasn't something we were trying to back into or all of a sudden learn. We knew we were really good at coaching these skills from the get-go, and the fact that we're in the same business and the employees are all on the same page, we can write a program based off of what a kid needs, not just getting him stronger or faster from a general sense. It's what does this kid need? On the pitching end, we can say, hey, this kid needs such and such. He needs to do this or that better. A lot of times it turns out it's not something that needs to be fixed in the baseball cage or on the throwing mound. It actually needs to be fixed in the weight room.
Thanks to Kansas City Strength and Conditioning, as always. All right, Les. So at the time we were recording during game one of the 4-game set against Detroit. The Royals have played 5 games so far. The game got banged yesterday in St. Louis. They won the first 2 Thursday and Saturday, and then lost Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So a bit of a mixed bag early. Before we hit position players and pitchers specifically, would have been some of your overall impressions of what you've seen through 5 games. Obviously a small sample, but there's some stuff to take from it.
Yeah, there is. One of the big things we talk about is Bobby Witt Jr. And although the batting average and the numbers aren't there, and I want to caution your listeners that look, a hitter needs at least 100 at bats to get an idea of where they're going to be. And we were kind of talking about this before we got set up. You could be hitting 100 and get a hit or 2 hits or 3 hits, and all of a sudden you're jumping to 285 or something like that. I don't know my math, but you get the idea. I mean, I remember one time in the minor leagues, if I went 3 for 4, my average went down, and that's because I just got off to a hot start in the first 5 games. And so you just never know. So I like Bobby Witt's poise at the plate. He gets deep into counts. They're pitching in both sides of the plate. They're giving him a lot of off speed. They're starting him off with off speed. They're trying to get him to chase. They're trying to define the holes because they don't know the holes yet. And then on defense, he's played incredible defense.
Oh, yeah.
He's shown good poise there as well. I think that defense will never be an issue for him. That play where he spun around and threw the 2-hopper to Selvey against the Guardians. Wow. I don't remember.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was crazy. Kid's 21 years old. He can play in the big leagues, but he can't rent a car yet for another 4 years. How crazy is that? I think another thing is not just his defense, but we've got 3 all-star shortstops on the infield, and no knock to Santana. But imagine if you've got those 3 guys, and then Prado gets here, who not only can mash, but he's known as a potential defensive superstar as well. I like the home run thing was a little bit slow, but Selvey hitting a couple and Benintendi getting off to a hot start. That's great. But I'd say the final thing that catches my eye, I think we were all worried about it, or at least thinking about it, was the huge question marks on this pitching staff. I think we knew Greinke was going to be fine. We were hoping Keller was going to be of 2 years ago and not last year. And then we knew Barlow and Stallmont and Brents were going to be solid, and they've been workhorses. We just hope they'd stay healthy and not get taxed. But here we are already. The offense after 5 games was averaging 3.8 runs a game. The pitching staff was averaging 6.8 runs a game. Now, that's because in back-to-back games, they gave up 17 and 10, but still, it's still an average. And so when your pitching staff is giving up 3 more runs than what your offense is doing, even though it's a very small sample size, it feeds right into the question marks. And so I'm sure we're going to talk about it, and they're gonna need to figure it out.
Yeah, we're going to hit on all that stuff. I think that's a great primer for the full conversation here, but I do want to start with Bobby Witt Jr. And you're right. the poise that he's shown, like you would not know he was, I think at this point now 3 for 21. The way he carries himself, I think, is so impressive. And I was at the game on opening day with my dad, and I was so excited to see how Bobby was going to react, how they were going to pitch to him. And normally, and just generally speaking, when you see these highly touted prospects come up or guys make the big league debut, it's all right, let's see if they can hit the heater. And then they start popping that. And then 3 games in, they're 0 for 12 because they started throwing all the curveballs. The Cleveland pitching staff was pitching him backwards from his third at bat. They started throwing him first pitch sliders, first pitch changeups. And you could see he was dead red and ready to go. And he'd take that ugly swing, he'd step out, reset, and then they throw it again, he'd spit on it. Right there. And just that subtle adjustment, his ability to make the adjustments as quickly as he did was what stuck out to me the most in game 1. And his ability to impact the game in some way. In his first 3 big league games, he went go-ahead double for his first big league knock in the biggest spot of the game in the 8th, makes the ridiculous defensive play to keep the game tied in the 10th inning. And then even the game was essentially over in the 3rd inning against Cleveland on Sunday. He still goes in and gets a 2-run double to at least keep the Royals in it. He could have mailed in those at-bats just like everybody else, but he still gets up and makes a knock. And that, to me, says a lot about where he's going to be. I'm not worried about his numbers right now. I'm not going to be worried until like July. Like if he's still kind of flailing and stuff, then we have reason to go, okay. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the way that he has carried himself to this point, he's only going to get better. And the bats he's turning in give me a lot of room for optimism.
Yes, I absolutely agree. You know, by being the number 1 prospect, not just in the Royals organization, but in all of baseball, that carries weight. And we know that he is, you know, I played in one spring training. I didn't make the big league club in 98, but I played with his dad. That's aging myself, but I played with his dad in spring training with the Rangers in 98. And I think Bobby was 1 at the time, maybe. I mean, he was a baby. So he does come from big league lineage. So what that means is you have the conversations. And as he's gotten older, he's hung out with dad at alumni events and stuff like that. But if you're not around the clubhouse while dad is playing, you know, conversations are just that. They're conversations, and they might put you a little bit ahead of the game, but it shows his maturity and poise at a young age where the game doesn't give in, doesn't get too big for him. Look, there are millions of guys that are talented enough to play Major League Baseball. There really are. It's just the reason why so many don't make it is because the game gets too big. It gets surreal, and they can't handle it emotionally when they get up there. Now, there are guys that get hurt. There are guys that, you know, are low draft picks and don't get as much of a chance as maybe some first, second rounders. But there are also guys that just get there. Look, before you play a game, you'd mentioned that, you know, they're throwing him sliders, first pitch sliders, and working him away and throwing him off speed stuff. That's respect, man. That is absolute respect. It's not the old days of here's my 99, brother. See if you can hit it, because he would have mashed it. And they knew he would have mashed it because in the minor leagues in the spring training, he was mashing that. So when you're 21 and you don't have a big league day, but you're already jacking up the opposing team's scouting report on the pitching side, you know that you're going to be around for a long time.
Oh, yeah. And for the Royals fans that are freaking out about his stat line early in the season, Julio Rodriguez is having a rough time in Seattle right now.
Yeah.
Spencer Torkelson, it took him 13 at-bats to get his first big league knock.
Right.
So there are these other highly touted guys that are having the same sorts of struggles. It's baseball. It's really friggin' hard. And especially like your Bobby, where you got, you know, about a couple hundred at-bats in AA, a couple hundred bats in AAA. And now, welcome to the show, kid. Let's go and let's see what you got. And it also shows the Royals' belief in him, just like Detroit believes in Torkelson, just like the Mariners believe in J-Rod. So it's going to be fine. There's no reason to worry. I think that some of it is the expectation he has created, which is a good thing, because that means that people believe he's actually going to be the guy, and it's not just hype. They actually believe the reality of who he can be. Yeah. So he's going to be just fine. I can't wait for what he's going to do.
He's going to hit probably about 280 to 290. He'll probably hit 15 to 20 home runs. He's not going to hit like he did in the minor leagues, because in the minor leagues, it's different. Guys can't throw the way they throw in the big leagues. I mean, there's the emotional, there's the mental, there's all those intangibles, along with, oh, by the way, there's a reason why those major leaguers are major leaguers because they can hit a dime in the outside corner when they want. They can pitch backwards. They're not afraid to. You'll get, and I saw a game, I think the third game of the season. I can't remember which one I was watching on TV, but a 3-0 pitch, guy threw a slider. And then a 3-1 pitch, it was the number 8 hitter he was facing. And then he threw a 3-0 slider, a 3-2 curveball, or a 3-1 curveball, and a 3-2 changeup, and struck the guy out on 3-0. They don't do that in the minor leagues. 3-0, here's my fastball. You might see a breaking ball 3-1 or maybe 3-2, but they just don't have the confidence or the talent to be able to do that. And so it's just a matter of a chess game, man. The pitchers, sometimes whoever adjusts first. With Bobby Witt Jr., the pitchers have adjusted first. Now Bobby will adjust back, and then the pitchers will adjust back, and it'll keep going back and forth. So in this first year, 280, 290, but I'll bet you by the time he's 24, he's an all-star.
Oh yeah, honestly, it might not even be that. Like, it might even be sooner.
I'm trying to be nice and not.
If we're being honest, no, I agree with you 100%. He's gonna be in the Rookie of the Year conversation by the end of the year, as he should be. And I also have a plus 300 ticket on that side. Appreciate if he was. But it's exciting times for sure. Looking at some of these other hitters, I mean, Andrew Benintendi's been off hot. Obviously, the contract year is undefeated, so you knew he was going to come out with a vengeance early on because he's wanting to get breaded up this offseason.
Right.
That's a really welcome sign. Where the Royals at least see at this point early are getting the guy that they traded for. And they did it at times last year. He was hurt there. He struggled at the beginning, then he got good, got hurt, and then he struggled and then was good again. So it was an up and down mixed bag that you got early on. But if he is fully healthy for a full season, it's looking really good for him to be your 3 hitter for the rest of the year. And I think that's been a really good spot for him.
I agree. And there are superstar hitters that in their contract year know how to turn it on. I was not one of them. I would not have been able to do that. I think that would have played on me mentally a little bit. And so to say with Benintendi, I mean, he's still only 27. He's not 32 or 33. I just think he works hard. And I think we're seeing a result of him working hard. I think for him, the whole contract thing is probably a little more coincidental, but he's just growing as a hitter every year. He understands and lets the game come to him. He doesn't get frazzled by pitches, no matter what they're throwing, no matter who's on the mound, no matter how hard they're throwing, no matter how they're pitching him. Again, tonight did not have the best first at bat, got a little jazzed a little bit and didn't see the ball really well, but that's okay. I just love his hands. He does a great job going with pitches. He never tries to muscle up. If it's a pitch that he can drive, he'll put a good swing on it and turn on it, but you'll never see him get off balance and overswing. And he just has a great strike zone awareness. He's a mature hitter for a 27-year-old. Now, again, he was with Boston. He got to the big leagues early. I get it. People think he's older than he is because he's been around, but still, hitting is hard. You mentioned it earlier. The big leagues is hard. Pitching's hard. Hitting is hard. And I just think that he's maturing and staying with his game plan consistently. And I think the Royals need to lock him down.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting case. I kind of made the case before the season with Alex over on Royals Farm Report that the Ketel Marte extension kind of throws a wrench into it because Benintendi could probably get something similar, somewhere around like a 5 for 78, something like that, which you got to think about if you're the Royals, for good or for bad. But my initial thought was you probably can get, I think Kyle Isbell, I'm a big believer in what he can do. And you probably get some production from him at a cheaper price with more control, moving forward. But I mean, if he plays like this, you at least consider bringing Andrew Benintendi back a little more. Now, if he continues on the plane he's on right now, he might price himself out of Kansas City. So there's a game there. Speaking of Kyle Isbell, he made the big league roster, which he should have. I think there's not much left for him to prove in AAA after a rough go at the beginning in Kansas City to start of 2021, and then struggling when he went back down to Omaha. He turned it on, hit about 330 the rest of the year. Like there's not much left for him to do. He's too good a hitter. But the fact that he hasn't really, I don't even think he's gotten a single at bat this year so far. Right. He has one pinch running appearance. It is a little odd. I think the Royals want to say that they believe in him and think he can be a part of the future, and then just kind of sit him on the bench with Edward Olivares. It's just a little. It strikes me as a little odd because I do think he can be a really good big league contributor, a 2-3 win player, elite defender on the corners. I want to see him in the lineup here soon. We're 6 games in and he hasn't seen a lineup yet, or even a pinch hit opportunity.
Yeah, this has kind of a special place in my heart what those guys are going through, because in my year and 62 days in the big leagues, what they're doing this first week, what they're doing this first week is what I did my whole short major league career, and it's one of the hardest things to do. I mean, Hubie Brooks sat down next to me in my first year in Kansas City, and he said, "Son, this is the hardest thing to do in baseball, is to sit for 2 or 3 weeks and then be asked to get up and have a good at bat like you've been playing for 3 weeks." And that's hard enough for guys that have been in the big leagues for a long time, let alone a rookie. And so the longer they sit and do not get utilized, the more it's going to hurt them, because their timing's going to be off. They're going to press when they get in there because they're so young. I mean, look what Olivares did in spring training. I mean, it was ridiculous. He led the Royals in everything. He might have led the Royals in pepperoni pizzas that he ate. I don't know. I mean, something, but he just absolutely went off. And so they're going to have to find a way to crack these guys in the lineup a little bit, even if it's, I know Dozier has started off pretty good. You got to save, the DH spot for Salvi once a week, and I get that, but Matheny's just going to have to do it, because if someone gets hurt and he has to rely on them later, it's going to be tougher for them to produce, because they're not going to have the timing that you need. And look, they're not going to be everyday players. They're not going to unseat 2 Gold Glovers and Whit Merrifield in the outfield. I mean, really, it's just not going to happen.
It's tough.
But occasionally, you can't be afraid to pinch hit for Bobby Witt Jr. once in a while. You can't be afraid to pinch hit for Hunter Dozier. Mondesi has not been tearing the cover off the ball. If it's a 9th inning and we're down, throw one of those guys in there and give them opportunities to show what they can do, and let that full roster help you.
Yeah, I mean, it's super early, so these numbers are not always indicative of the success they could have moving forward. But Carlos Santana has a sub 400 OPS.
Yeah,
Mondesi has a sub 400 OPS. Michael A. Taylor sub 400 OPS. Like he's at 875 because he had 1 home run. But I digress. Like, there's not a lot of thump around here somewhere. Hunter Dozier is a 450. Like, they're at a certain point, you need to rattle the bat rack a little bit and get some guys in there that can maybe give you a spark. And I think it is going to be giving Mondesi a day off here and there, because we know how brittle he can be at times and how quickly an IL stint for him can come. Hunter Dozier, you never know what you're going to get with him sometimes. Moving Whit Merrifield back into a natural position at second base, I don't know if he'll be able to hold up in right field every single day with him playing every single day like he likes to do and that the Royals like him to do.
I want to comment on that real quick. I even watched it tonight, but look, Whit Merrifield's a great athlete, but he's not an everyday outfielder. I mean, if you watch the way he approaches balls, I mean, he's not super comfortable even on routine fly balls. He does not track them like an outfielder tracks them. So look, I get you need to have him in the lineup, and you need Lopez at second, and I get the way all that is, but they may have to deal him away or let one of these young guys be dealt away to go play somewhere else. And obviously the whole is, and I know we're going to talk about it, we need pitching, because pitching is not off to a great start, and it doesn't seem like it's maybe not going to get there. So look, man, there's got to be a way, and it seems like there is a way for the Royals to get these younger guys in. And if that's trading away a guy like, I mean, I know they signed him, there's a contract and all that, but look, regardless of the fact, you need an everyday outfielder, and you have to let these guys be able to play.
Yeah, there's going to be some shuffling, I think, that goes on here pretty soon, because I don't think they can let the offense be the way it is. I like the lineup you roll out on opening day is fine, but scoring less than 4 runs a game, it's just not going to play in the way the game is played now. It's not going to work, and it's not going to win you games. Playing small ball works at times in like October, but you can't even get to October if you're losing 90 games a year.
Yeah, but tell me, brother, aren't you tired of having to rely on playing the small ball game? I mean, seriously, I know Salvi hit 48 last year, but how often do we have to settle for, oh, I guess that's what we're going to be because of the pitching or because
it doesn't
of
work.
the lack?
Like
it doesn't.
It just doesn't work in the way the game is played now.
Yeah.
You got to bang the ball a little bit. Like I understand you can have your Nicky Lopez's in the lineup. You can't have 4 of them. And that's kind of what they have right now. And
Right.
speaking of Nicky Lopez, he's been awesome. I have to eat a bunch of crow on him, but he's hitting 350 at the bottom of the lineup. Like, he's the perfect consummate 9-hole hitter that brings you right back to the top of the lineup. So
Your
he has
second leadoff.
carved out a role.
That's my Illinois boy right there. Yeah.
Yes, tons of credit to him. He's been very, very impressive early on. I don't really have much to say about Salvador Perez. It seems like he's figured things out and is that mammoth shot. Once he got one homer, I knew I was like, okay, he's gonna be fine. Like, he's gonna figure it out and he'll be okay. He's been around the game for long enough. Like, he'll be all right.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else with the line, so let's move on to the pitching. But before we do that, we get into our weekly segment with Keona Sinks talking about what's coming up at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Jackie Robinson Day is on the day that this podcast comes out. So check it out. All right, Keona. So you mentioned last time we were on that the Cleveland Guardians team, players, coaches, all that were going to come to the museum on the off day. What was that experience like if there's anybody that has been there before or first-time players that were there?
It was amazing. Really excited to welcome the Cleveland Guardians. I had to catch myself to the museum. It was just so amazing. A lot of the coaches, a lot of the players, front office made their way down to historic 18th and Vine to get that tour from our president, Bob Kidrick, to experience the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. From my perspective, going downstairs, seeing a lot of these young athletes start to learn about the history of our game and how the museum is doing our due diligence to preserve America's pastime really allows them, Joel, to integrate themselves and reflect it back and see, like, these guys paved the way. And so, of course, I'm in the back floating around, and, you kind of get to see the head nods and a lot of the selfies and the picture taking and all of the things that everybody does when they come to the museum. But it was definitely a delight to see us welcome our first team of 2022 to the museum, and there'll be more, but it was definitely great to have Cleveland here.
Absolutely. I love that a lot of teams make that a regular part of the road trip, especially if there's an off day before or something like that. And especially the teams that don't come to Kansas City all that often. I mean, I know teams from Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, I don't know, they don't come every year because they're here, 10, 12 times a year. But, for the teams like I'm excited for, like, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Rockies, some of these teams that don't come to Kansas City very often. I hope they're able to make their way to the museum as well. How cool is it to see the guys that are there for the first time, that haven't been there, of any race, that are there for what's it like to see that experience for those guys?
It's amazing. This is home. This is their second home. This is, for most athletes who, look like myself, this is their mothership. This is where you come and you pay your respects, you pay your dues, and, you're grateful for men and women who paved the way to create an opportunity to play in the big leagues. These athletes, as you know, Joel, as we talk about all the time, when Buck built this museum, he wanted to do that so these athletes would be remembered and the stories would continue to live on. And so this story is generational. Buck was generational. And now I remember, listening to Bob talk about, a lot of the conversations him and Buck had about, wanting to get Major League Baseball teams to the museum. There was a point in time where we were begging essentially to have them come. And now, I think Major League Baseball and the aspect around diversity, equity, and inclusion are starting to embrace that the museum plays a larger role in this conversation as we continue to not only grow our game and our sport, but obviously educate and apply these life lessons that the Negro Leagues, represent and how they can be applied today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, I believe it's this Friday, a significant day, 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier when he stepped on the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15th, 1947. What do you guys have coming up for that? I know you mentioned to me there's a Twitter space. What's going to be going on there with that?
Yeah, we thought, Joel, it'd be great just to, obviously our contribution to the 75th anniversary will be continuously throughout the year. But to kick off, on April 15th, the museum will be hosting the Twitter Spaces, moderated by Ty Redham, Jeff Passan, Bob Kendrick, LaTroy Hawkins, Dave Stewart, just some legendary, people who've done some great things for our sport, but obviously very community oriented and understand the history and the importance and the relevancy of our game. And so I'm breaking out people to get on Twitter from a generational perspective. It'd be funny to see if they can actually all get on there at the same time and not have any issues. But we're going to have a Twitter Spaces, and it's the conversation with great people. And you can expect to hear, how Jackie's, breaking of the color barrier was ultimately the start, the beginning actually of the civil rights movement in this country. And that's what we believe here at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So it should be a great conversation.
Is there a time for that set? I want to make sure that I can get on that as well. So, and for anybody else that's listening,
11 o'clock Central Standard Time on Twitter. The museum, we have been promoting it, so people can it's literally like a huge conference call. Just jump on Twitter and just listen to the conversation, but it should be an exciting conversation.
Awesome. We'll be sure to plug that as well. And then also coming up soon, the Monarch Plaza rededication is coming up here. I believe you said May 6th. Can you take, for those that maybe don't know enough about that, what's going on there, and what can we look forward to here in the coming weeks?
Absolutely. Monarch Plaza, the former home of Municipal Stadium, was home to the Kansas City Monarchs, Kansas City Athletics. I'm trying to think of our Chiefs, our Royals, or Kansas City A's, excuse me. And they all played a significant role for sports history there in that stadium that was located on the corner of 22nd and Brooklyn here in Kansas City. And so like most things, sometimes things need to be repaired and they fall into a state of despair. And last year around this time, we were out there to shoot with the Royals. And, you just kind of look around and you're like, man, it's falling apart. And, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum has a natural vested interest in wanting to see this plaza, look its part because it is a significant part of Black baseball history in our city. And so, make a long story short, Joel, we're rededicating the plaza on May 6th, Friday, May 6th at 11 o'clock, open to the public. And it'll be amazing. We're unveiling a new Jackie Robinson placard as well. He's the only placard that was not installed on the plaza, which we found to be very eye-opening, and then just more symbolic, because of his role with the Kansas City Monarchs. And so it just makes for a greater story. You got, I think, placards out there. Mr. Bobby Bell, Hall of Famer Bobby Bell, Royals Hall of Famer Amos Otis, Royals Hall of Famer Frank White, just all these people that are pictured that have a dedicated spot for their image. And, of course, it gives history and their stats and all that stuff. But, if it's not readable, right, it's nothing to see. So we're going to give people something to see on Friday, May 6th. And we're really excited about that.
All right, we got a lot of good stuff coming up. I'm excited for Friday. Jackie Robinson Day is one of my favorite days of the year. I always try and get to the park. I love that everybody wears 42 that day. The famous conversation that happened with him and Pee Wee Reese, and to see that shown and revitalized every year on April 15th is certainly one of my favorite days of the year, and I can't wait to see what's up next. Thank you very much, Kiona.
Thank you, Joe.
So the pitching has been a problem, to put it lightly, Les. Greinke was great on opening day. If you can figure out a way to get 5 or 6 innings out of him like that for the length of the season, you're golden and you're feeling really good. Brad Keller looked as good as I've seen him since 2020. Yeah. So that was very impressive, throwing his 4-seamer at the top of the zone. He, along with the sinker slider that he already has. We can keep working the changeup a little more. I like what I saw from him. He looked confident. He looked a little more fluid. It was really encouraging. And then we got to what we saw the next 3 days.
Yeah.
It hurt a little bit. Like I tried watching a little bit of the game on Sunday, and once Chris Bubich went out and it was 6-0, I went, I'm going to check on a final round of the Masters and just not put myself through this, because it got painful. And then it got painful on Monday, and then it got kind of painful on Tuesday as well. Now Lynch settled in relatively well to get through 5, but it's really concerning. It is. And I try not to make too much stock out of one start, but it is a little where I am worried that this is going to be a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was really encouraged by Keller again, because he was topping out at 97, but he was pitching to contact. And later on, he would say, I've got 3 all-star caliber shortstops behind me. Why wouldn't I pitch to contact? So that's a smart and talented Brad Keller, instead of a guy trying to pick and walking guys or leaving the ball over the middle of the plate. Because look, I don't care if you throw 97 or 100 miles an hour. If you throw it over the middle of the plate, big league hitters are going to hammer that. And so he's I think he's matured over and he learned a lot from last year. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this year what we saw in that first start. I'm not saying he's going to win every game or win a Cy Young, but his approach is different. And when your approach is good and it matches your talent and you stay healthy with a great defense behind you, you're probably going to have good results over the course of the season. And I wouldn't be too worried about it, except for the fact that that backside of the bullpen is young guy, young guy, young guy. And the Royals have touted their pitchers for a long time. Oh, we're going to bring this guy up and this guy. I mean, 1 week of the season and Koar is out of the big leagues now. He's already sent out. And so, and understandably why. He was over the middle of the plate and statistics didn't show it. And the Koar experience might just be done for quite a while, if not forever. Who knows? But, Bubic is a guy that even though he's young, he's been in the big leagues long enough and it's time to figure some things out. Granted, it's only one start, so we got to give him some starts. But when you match it with, we gave up 17, we gave up 10, and although we only gave up 6, when Lynch only gave up 6 in St. Louis, it was because of 3-run home run and 3-run home run. 2 of them are back to back. And so it worries me that they're not going to learn from it, and hopefully they will. It worries me that Barlow and Stalmont and Brents are going to get abused. I like the fact that Dylan Coleman is in the big leagues,
Stud.
and he is a stud, but he throws 98. But in St. Louis, he got hit around pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
He was 3 up, 3 down, but he had 3 at bats where there was some serious exit velocity that jumped off the bat. And so, granted, you're going to have that. Pitching to contact is great. But pitching to contact, when you throw 98 and you're pitching in the 7th or 8th inning, probably not the best route to go because that's where more base runners come. I'll end with this. The reason I'm not worried about Daniel Lynch was because even though he made some mistakes, we also saw flashes of brilliance. We saw 7 strikeouts with some. I mean, he gave up the home run to Arenado. The next at bat, he made Arenado look foolish on 4 pitches. And so his slider's working good. His changeup's working good. When he spotted his fastball and kept it down, he was good. And so when you see the brilliance there, and then you give up a couple, and then the brilliance there, then he's just a start or 2 away or a bullpen session away from figuring it out.
Yeah.
And you can obviously tell he has forgotten about the whole, I came to the big leagues and I yucked all over myself and now I got to go back down to the minor leagues. I mean, I don't think they handled that well, but mentally he's gotten over that. So I think he's going to be fine. But some of these other guys are going to have to get to it really early or we're going to dig ourselves a hole in the first month of the season.
So I'll start with the built-in excuse that I think a lot of teams have early on. Because of the lockout, they couldn't communicate with their pitching staff, player development, anything like that. So really guys were having to work on their own and just get ready for the season. And then you had an abbreviated spring training where it's trial by fire for everyone, even for the 10-year vets trying to get going. I mean, you saw Kershaw yesterday. Perfect through 7, but he's like, I haven't thrown more than 75 pitches in a sim. So I didn't pick up a ball until January because no one knew when the season was going to start. Now, that said, what we saw from the 4 2018 pitchers that have come up and pitched a lot in the big leagues with Lynch, Koar, Singer, and Bubic, it's the same stuff and the same issues that we've seen since they come to the big leagues. Chris Bubic, I like Chris Bubic a lot, but when he loses command, it is ugly. And it has been that way since 2020.
Snowballs, doesn't it?
It does. And some of it, I've mentioned before, some of it's just his delivery. It's so funky that sometimes he lacks command, but you iron it out, he might lose the deception and 92 doesn't play. So there's some give and take there, but the command is ugly when it is not on. When he's on, it's great. But when he loses it at all, he's hanging changeups over the middle and it's not good. Brady Singer is a mixed bag of awful most of the time. And I hate to be that critical and knock on the kid, and he doesn't throw his 3rd pitch as much as the Royals want him to, as much as the Royals want to say he's working on it, much as he wants to say that he's working on it, he doesn't throw it. And now you move him to the bullpen, which I think some of me thinks, okay, maybe that can work, but it de-incentivizes him to throw that 3rd pitch because you don't need to throw a 3rd pitch in the bullpen for the most part. His sinker slider will be fine. And so it feels a little contradicting. And his command gets all over the place too because of how much movement he gets on his pitches and he can't hunt it in. Jackson Kolar can't throw his fastball over the plate without it getting walloped, and he can't even get to his changeup. And I think a lot of his stuff is between the ears right now because
Mhm.
he dominated low A, high A, double A, triple A. And
Yeah.
they're like with no hiccups.
Right.
And even last year when he went back down, shoved and was great. And now he just cannot figure it out the big level. So that tells me that it's here. And
Mhm.
hopefully he can get it figured out in Omaha.
Right.
And with Lynch, it's been okay, I can get to 2 strikes, but can't put hitters away. All
Right.
3 home runs he gave up were with 2 strikes. And I think that is the most fixable problem of any of those 4.
Mhm.
So that gives me a little bit of hope that Lynch can still be a guy, and for him to
Sure.
still strike out 7 and 5, outside of those 3 home runs, can be fine. But again, he hasn't been able to put hitters away with 2 strikes for all of 2021 and his first start this year. So it's a developmental problem, and it's a problem with those guys not getting better. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of blame to go around with it.
Right. In these situations, unfortunately, when you have the same draft class and now they're in the big leagues and the similar things are happening and they're not getting better, they're getting worse. It's like when a team is losing a lot and the expectations were higher, the hitting coach gets fired. The hitting coach gets fired more than anybody, I think, on the coaching staff. But and I'm not one of the guys that, oh, you got to fire Cal Eldred, you got to fire Cal Eldred. Sometimes those are byproducts of the situation, but somewhere in the system, somewhere in the minor league system, somewhere, I'm not saying fire anybody at all. What I'm saying is, what is your communication? Because if you look at Bubich, he needs to just get to work. He needs to figure out smoother mechanics, and he's got the stuff. But if you throw 92, then you better be painting corners. Brady Singer just needs to get tougher, man. He needs to go deeper into games. He needed to. Sometimes when you take a beating, you needed to wear it. And my goodness gracious, at University of Florida, you might have gotten away with 2 pitches, and that's fine. But you're in the big leagues, and you better darn well throw 3 pitches. And hey, once you get number 3, get a 4th. And you were talking about when you throw in the bullpen, you do need a change up in the bullpen because
Usually, yeah.
where else are you
Mhm.
going to practice it? If you
Yeah.
practice it in the game, then the grounds crew are going to be practicing fishing it out of the fountain because that's where it's going to end up landing.
Yep.
And so, like we talked about, we agree on Lynch. He's got to learn how to put guys away, but he's got strikeout. He's got swing and miss stuff with 2 strikes. He just needs to learn to develop it. So we've seen his great stuff in action. So yeah, man, and Coar, there are just some guys. I've seen a lot of guys that I played with, that I played against, and I've seen since then that can dominate the minor leagues, but they get to the big leagues and they just can't figure it out. And you're right, it's all here. It's too surreal. They're insecure. They're pitching to not fail instead of pitching to their strengths and not worrying about the result. When, like anything in life, baseball, business, family, whatever, if you do things to not fail, you're increasing your chances of failing. You're expecting yourself to fail. You're seeing it before it even happens. And I feel like that's what Coar's done.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that's a lot of it. When I saw like in the spring, he looked solid, and I was like, maybe
Yeah.
he's turned a corner here. Like he talked about, and in the interviews he did in spring training with like Joel Goldberg and stuff on Fox, he sounded confident. He sounded ready to go. And so I've been driving the Coar hype train since he got drafted. I've loved the kid, and I thought he was going to be at least if nothing else, a surefire like back end like fireman, and just be a great reliever if you couldn't make it as a starter. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know what he is at this point. And it's really concerning to see some of these guys, like the flameouts happen super fast for all of them, I think.
It's
It's not
disheartening.
like it is. It's very, and especially when the Royals have built like the rebuild. Like we're going to compete because we're going to get all these college pitchers to come up, and they're going to be our rotation. They're going to be in our bullpen. And they're going to help us compete. And none of them have even solidified themselves as a viable big league pitcher at this point.
Right.
And
You're
that's the
exactly
hope
right.
now. It's not like it looked 2 years ago, looked like, shoot, we have 4 guys we can plug into our rotation by this year, by 22,
Mhm.
and we're going to be ready to roll. And now at this point, we're just hoping that you get 2 viable pitchers out of this.
Yeah.
Now there's
Yeah.
more coming with like Lacey, Alec Marsh, John Bolin, and others that you can hope then can fill in, but it sets you behind because you were expecting these guys to be a part of it. And then those guys have to supplement and not come in to be part of the solution immediately.
Yeah.
So and it makes I didn't love the idea of the Frankie Montas trade at the time, but it makes a lot of sense right now.
Mhm.
It makes a lot of sense why the Royals were so in on him. I don't know where he's going to end up. It looks like Chicago wants him. So the Royals, they need to figure something out, and with some veteran pitching or changes in the coaching staff, pitching development, something, because if you want to win and you want to start competing by 2023, it starts on the mound.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll keep this one short. Look, I think it was the stat was like the last 30 big prospects that the Royals have. 14 of them are pitchers. Almost 50% of them are
Mhm.
pitchers. And I think the reason why is, and I know Dayton Moore understands this, is that every person you draft in the first round, every pitcher that you project is going to be a starter within a year or two or even 3 years. Not every one of them is going to pan out. They're
Yep.
just not. The odds are against it. Guys get hurt. Guys don't handle emotionally. Guys just sometimes just don't have the success you think. And so I think they're on the right track. They're getting more pitchers. I mean, I know back in my generation, there were so many first rounders that didn't even make it to double A. I mean, it was crazy. And I won't even list that long list. I played with a bunch of them, and I'm wondering, how did you even go in the first round out of Stanford or whatever this college was? So they're getting it right. I just feel like maybe we put a little bit of too many eggs in this draft basket.
Yep.
And so now we're at the start of the season. We're having to hurry up and scramble to get it before we get behind the eight ball too much.
And I think they're already starting to get to that point.
Yeah.
And normally the Royals start out April usually pretty well. They did well. They had the best record in baseball after April last year. So
Yeah.
they got to figure things out. But I mean, if you're wanting to be, I mean, I think if they need to hit over their win total, I think like Alex and I talked about last week, 74.5 is what we've seen.
Mhm.
They need to be over that if you want to try and compete in 2023, and I don't even make the playoffs in 23, but you just be viable, be
Yeah.
500, a
Yeah.
couple over, and at least play meaningful baseball into August and
Yeah.
September, and
I
not
feel
be
like you got to
punting the
push
season.
80.
Yeah,
I got to give him 80. I mean, I agree exactly. If you want to even contend and then get to 24, maybe the playoffs, I'm going to be a little bit rough and say you need to be pushing 80, 81 games right around that 500 mark, because if
yep,
you're not, it's not, this crew is not going to be just a flash in the pan, lightning in a bottle. It's just not going to work that way. We won in 2015 and got there 2014 because you had the Hosmers, Moustakas, the Salvies, and all those guys, and then obviously Zobrist helped and Kane helped, and you got the big three pitching. But a lot of that core guys, they came up through the minor leagues together,
hmm
and they all succeeded together. And this has not been the case with this pitching staff.
no, not at all. And I said 77 was where I think they're going to be
Getting
at. That was
there.
my prediction. Yeah, that was my prediction. Now, would I love them to win 80? Absolutely. And it's a rough thing to say 6-ish games into the season that 77 feels generous right now. If this is what we're going to get every fifth day from the pitching staff, it's getting dicey early, and you
Mhm.
never want to feel that way as a fan. No matter who your team is, you never want to feel like, holy crap, this is going south fast in the
Yeah.
first week of the season.
Yeah. Let's remember this. So it's all our fans, all Royals fans and listeners and readers and watchers, viewers, all that. It's not about the wins and losses. And people say, well, it's only the first week of the season. You're absolutely right. And we're not saying, oh, season's over. They're coming
Right.
into tonight's game at 2-3. It's a losing record. They're in last place. Look, that's not the case at all. The thing I'm looking for is, how often are they over the middle of the plate? They gave up 17 runs and 10 runs, 27 runs in back-to-back games. And if you go back and look, and every team goes through that. You know, the old Yankees that were the big, humongous payroll, even they did that, en route to, 3 World Series out of 4 years. But the point of that is, if you're going to be this generation that's going to track exit velocity, check the exit velocity when you're giving up 17 runs, because it's high. They're over the middle of the plate. Daniel Lynch pitched well, pitched brilliantly in some areas. But again, he was over the middle of the plate. And so that's the thing that we're talking about. We're not gloom and doom after 1 week. I'm still waiting for a month. I'm still waiting for hitters to have 100 at bats. I'm still waiting for pitchers to have 5 and 6 starts before we really get a legitimate idea. We're just looking about where we're heading. And look, if you know there's a route when you're driving somewhere that it's inevitably going to crash, you're going to take a different route. So right now we're thinking, okay, there are signs that this road may not be good. So maybe let's navigate a different route and see if we can avoid the things that we're talking about that scare us.
I really just want to see some fight. I think that's the biggest thing early on is like the old Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And I
I
don't
love
think the
that.
Royals foresaw 2-3 and getting absolutely shellacked 2 games in a row against the Cleveland Guardians and apparently finding out that Stephen Kwan is the greatest baseball player of all time. Holy
Yeah,
crap, that guy is ridiculous.
yeah, that's
That was
amazing.
incredible. It was incredible. I'm not even mad. As a baseball fan, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Um, but I need to see, how do you pick yourself up off the mat after finding that and
Hmm.
seeing that? And now you got a 4-piece with the Tigers, who are they're a good club,
Hmm.
a really good team. I think AJ Hinch is one of the best managers in baseball, and he found
Agreed.
a way to get a lot out of a young, inexperienced Tiger team and get them pretty close to 500.
Yeah.
So you want to try and compete for 500 in the playoffs. You're competing with them too, along with Cleveland and Chicago, who's some of the class of the AL.
Yeah.
So there's a lot ahead of you, and you can't fall too far behind. Otherwise, it is up a creek without a paddle for the last 4.5 months of the season. It's
Right.
not.
And
It won't be pretty if it is ugly in April.
I feel like if the Royals don't get to with the names they have and the talent they have, even with it pitching question marks, if they don't get to 500 and they end up third or fourth in the division, you're seeing AJ Hinch take this team and get the most out of them while they're on their way up.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the if the Twins get fourth or fifth but hang in there and slowly improve, they're back on their way up. We obviously can see that the Guardians can hit and play, and their pitching staff's pretty good, and we know what the White Sox have. So if the Royals underachieve with what they have, the names and the talent they have, man, it's not a bright sign for the future. We might
Not at
we
all.
might need to not be talking about 2023 or 2024 playoffs because we might be heading in the wrong direction. Again, first week, but we'll have to wait and see how this whole thing pans out.
Yeah, I mean, you can see. I mean, even this early, you can see the broader storylines happening because I don't think Minnesota's great. I didn't. They made some weird moves this year, and I don't completely buy into it. But hey, they're at least trying, and I respect that because there are teams in baseball that are not.
Mhm.
Detroit is they're a lot better. Cleveland's going to pitch even when their hitting goes into a bit of a slump. They're still going to pitch. Chicago. I don't care how many injuries they have. They
Mhm.
are still going to run away with the division. So there's a lot to fight for here early, and winning these games early against divisional opponents is going to be paramount. So a lot early, a lot this weekend to pay attention to if you're a Royals fan. So any final thoughts before we get you out of here, Les?
Uh, yeah, the thing I like is just the fact that it's good to still be a baseball fan. I mean, I know we
Mhm.
had the lockout, and with COVID going on, and then a shortened season to get baseball back, even with a lockout, man, it makes you have a short memory on things. It's so great to be out. I mean, dude, I even caught a foul ball off Salvi in the middle deck on opening day with my big
Nice.
giant mittens on. I mean, that's crazy. It's just so fun. And my son was with me. Of course, he went up to get a pretzel, didn't see it. He had to see it when he came back. But again, the whole idea is just that we talk about baseball, the good, the bad. It's our jobs. We're in the media. We see things and we prognosticate. But the bottom line is, man, it's just good to have baseball back. It's great to be a baseball fan. I think it's the greatest sport in the world, obviously. But yeah, man, good, bad, or ugly, whatever it is, it's just still good to be out there watching the Royals play and watching baseball.
Has there been any other games or teams that you've been tuning into outside the Royals with baseball being back? I watched the game between the Blue Jays and the Yankees last time when Vlad hit 3.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the
As a
Blue
freak.
Jays. Remember the mini Blue Jays dynasty that was going on there for a while. I mean, they were
Yeah.
in the World Series. I mean, Pat Borders was my first big league roommate. I heard so many stories about that Blue Jays team. I think they're going to be coming back into that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the Angels. It'll be interesting to watch the Angels this year because now you have Trout healthy and Otani doing his thing, and so some of those young guys could pick up the slack. They could finally contend, and Trout could be on a team that actually gets to a World Series. Who knows? But there are some great storylines. There's some great young guys. You've got a hitter in the Cubs that already hit 3 home runs in the first 3 games, and
Oh, yeah, Seiya. That guy can
yeah,
rake.
he can
Yeah.
rake. And I'm from Chicago and grew up going to games at Wrigley Field, so I'll always love the Cubs. So yeah, there are great teams and storylines. Stephen Kwan, you mentioned, there are great storylines all over baseball, and it's just so great to be a fan of the sport.
Oh yeah, I'm about to get off and hopefully watch some of these West Coast games here
Yeah,
before I got to get up in the morning, go back to work. But it's always good when I can come home from work about an hour. I get an hour with my family, and then it's East Coast to West Coast. Just about 7 days a week watching baseball. It's a great time. About the next 6 months, I'm at my happiest. So it is.
yeah,
It's great to be back. And Les, I can't thank you enough for joining me tonight. Let's do it again soon.
absolutely, Joel. Thanks for having me, man. Anytime, I'll be here.